and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison LaGrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. At least two cloudbursts in northern India's Uttarakhand state kills at least 4 people, with several others feared missing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says leaving no stone unturned in providing assistance to those affected by the tragedy. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi hosts Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in New Delhi as the two countries elevate ties to a strategic partnership. Prime Minister Modi says Delhi and Manila are friends by choice and partners by destiny. Russia's oil export shipments remain steady, showing no signs of being hit by US President Donald Trump's threat to hike tariffs on imports from India, the biggest buyer of Moscow's seaborne crude. Pakistan bans public gatherings in the capital Islamabad amid nationwide protests by supporters of jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan on the 2nd anniversary of the cricketer-turned-politician's arrest. And parts of Hong Kong come to a standstill due to flooding caused by heavy rains. Authorities issued the highest-tier rainstorm warning for the 4th time in 8 days. Hello and welcome. We begin with the latest on US President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. The US has proposed a new pilot program that would require visa bonds of up to $15,000 from certain foreign visitors. Under the 12-month pilot program, US consular officers will have the discretion to demand visa bonds from some tourist and business travelers, particularly those from countries flagged for high visa overstay rates or weak screening processes. Travelers who overstay would forfeit the bond, but those who comply with the terms of their visa will get it back. The visa bonds will be set at 3 tiers, $5,000, $10,000, and $15,000, depending on the risk level assigned to each country. In addition to the bond, a new $250 visa integrity fee is set to take effect on the 1st of October. Together, these measures stand to make the US one of the most expensive destinations in the world for short-term visitors. A final list of affected countries has not been released, but the Trump administration is pitching the visa bond policy as a tool to address what it calls a national security threat, pointing to the nearly 500,000 visa holders who overstayed in 2023. US government data shows a significant portion of those overstays came from visitors arriving from lower-income countries, many of them in Africa. Now, those countries include Chad, Laos, Haiti, Myanmar, and Sudan. Djibouti, Eritrea, and Liberia are also on the list. Visitors from India, who form among the largest share of foreign nationals traveling to the United States, reported one of the lowest overstay rates according to the official US data. Industry groups warn that the pilot program could backfire, discouraging legitimate travelers and further damaging a tourism economy that is already struggling. Critics argue that the Trump administration's message is unmistakable. Foreigners aren't welcome unless they can afford to pay. The US says this is only a test, but for countless would-be visitors, it may already feel like a wall. And moving on to the growing tensions between the US and Russia, two powerful nations that have been at loggerheads over the war in Ukraine. In the latest escalation, Russia has withdrawn from the 1987 nuclear treaty. This means Russia can now deploy its nukes. Moscow's decision reignites fears of a nuclear confrontation. But what led to this decision? Moscow blamed the actions of the West. The Russian Foreign Ministry stated that the West has created a direct threat to its security. Russia also referred to several recent U.S. military actions. Last week, U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the deployment of 2 nuclear submarines. He did not specify where these submarines will be positioned. He just said that they will be deployed in the appropriate regions. However, in a separate interview, the U.S. president said these submarines will be closer to Russia. The Kremlin cautioned Trump over his nuclear rhetoric, but Trump said his order was based on highly provocative statements made by Russia's Dmitry Medvedev. Now, he is a former president and deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council. He said Trump should remember how dangerous the fabled dead hand can be. The reference was to a semi-automated Russian command system. It is designed to launch Moscow's nuclear missiles in case the leadership is removed in an enemy strike. The Russian leader's words alarmed Trump. He was quick to issue a warning, saying Medvedev needs to watch his words as he is entering a dangerous territory. Trump and Medvedev had been sparring over social media. The nuclear saber rattling was a part of that nasty public brawl. The US and Russia control a vast majority of the world's nuclear weaponry. Washington even keeps nuclear-armed submarines on permanent patrol. Now, these are a part of America's nuclear triad of land, sea, and air-launched weapons. However, a treaty signed in 1987 eliminated an entire class of weapons. It restricted the deployment of short and medium-range nuclear missiles. The treaty was signed by Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev and US President Ronald Reagan. The US and Russia have been at odds over the war in Ukraine. After peace talks stalled between the two warring sides, Trump had set an 8th of August deadline for Russia to stop its invasion or to face new sanctions. But the deadline has so far failed to stop the war, and the escalation in the tensions between the US and Russia has taken a dangerous turn, with nuclear threats involved. And moving on, Australia is rearming itself, and its latest defense deal with Japan is making waves across the Indo-Pacific. In the latest, Japan beat Germany to clinch one of the country's biggest defense export deals of all time. The $6 billion agreement for stealth frigates, announced by Australian Defence Minister Richard Marles, marks Japan's largest defence export outside the United States since the Second World War. Defence Minister Richard Marles has called the upcoming frigates the best capability for Australia, given the prevailing security challenges in the region. Listen in.
The Megami-class frigate is the best frigate for Australia. This is currently a frigate which is in service in the Japanese Maritime Self-Defence Force. They operate the Megami-class vessel. It is a next-generation vessel. It is stealthy. It has 32 vertical launch cells capable of launching long-range missiles.
Megami-class warships are advanced stealth frigates capable of launching long-range cruise missiles. They have an operational range of up to 10,000 nautical miles or over 18,000 kilometres. This is far more than Australia's current Anzac-class frigates, which have a range of about 6,000 nautical miles or over 11,000 kilometres. Now, according to the agreement, the first 3 frigates will be built in Japan. The rest are set to be assembled in Western Australia, and the deal is a part of Canberra's broader push to expand its major warship fleet from 11 to 26 within a decade. Australia already has a separate and far more expensive commitment, the AUKUS submarine pact with the US and the UK. But the nuclear-powered fleet could cost upwards of $235 billion. Now, apart from the budget-related concerns, the AUKUS submarine pact is under review by the Trump administration. Given these challenges, the Megami-class frigates fill an urgent gap in Canberra's defence challenges, replacing the aging Anzac-class vessels and giving Australia faster, cheaper naval punch. The Japan-Australia deal is also a diplomatic signal, a tightening of ties between two countries that see China's growing maritime assertiveness as a shared threat. Both Japan and Australia are members of the Quad, alongside India and the United States. The deal remains a part of coordinated regional shift, where interoperability, deterrence, and forward presence are becoming the new normal. Japan, for its part, continues to emerge from its post-war pacifism. This is only its second major weapons export since it loosened arms trade rules in 2014. But whether these ambitious purchases turned into reliable platforms remain to be seen. For now, with warships in the water and regional tensions on the rise, the message is clear. Canberra is done waiting. It wants a navy that's bigger, faster, and much, much harder to mess with. And moving on to the latest in South Asia. The 8th of August marks 1 year of exile of the former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. She was ousted after a massive students-led rebellion against her last year. The protesting crowd stormed her residence, forcing the former premier to take a military helicopter to flee the country. She landed at the Hindon Air Base in India's Ghaziabad along with her younger sister Rihanna. After discussion with India's national security advisors, she was invited to live in New Delhi. The moment marked the end of her 15-year rule in the neighbouring country. Sheikh Hasina lives in a well-guarded home in central Delhi, provided by the Indian government. However, her exact whereabouts remains a mystery. Her daughter, Saima Wazed, also lives in Delhi. She was the regional director of the World Health Organization for the Southeast Asia region. Last month, she was asked to proceed on an indefinite leave, and this was due to the running court cases in Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina has been in regular contact with her Awami League party's leaders in Bangladesh and in exile around the world. New Delhi gave the Bangladeshi leader refuge, but has discouraged her from overt political activities. The Indian government also distanced itself from Sheikh Hasina's political remarks. Hasina faces several charges of corruption and human rights violations. She is also accused of committing war crimes during her tenure in Bangladesh. The grave charges have made her return to Dhaka unlikely at present. However, this has not stopped Sheikh Hasina from still being relevant in Bangladesh's politics. She sent out recorded audio messages for her supporters. On one occasion, she even addressed a live rally in Dhaka. But the rally ended with extreme violence, leading to an attack on the sites that represent the former premier's family legacy. The student groups that led the rebellion against her and rose to power attacked her family home and her father Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's memorial museum at Dhanmondi. Most of the museum interiors were burned down. Now that's not a standalone incident. There have been sporadic incidents of violence. Just last month, 5 people were killed in Gopalganj, Sheikh Hasina's political stronghold, and the birthplace of Bangladesh's founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. The violence broke out between the Awami League supporters and security forces following a student-led rally. Sheikh Hasina's Awami League is also facing a crackdown from the incumbent government. In February, the government launched Operation Devil Hunt. It was a sweeping campaign under which more than 8,600 arrests were made. Many of those detained were said to be Awami League supporters. Bangladesh's interim government chief advisor, Muhammad Yunus, has also banned the Awami League party and its student wing. The ban has made it impossible for Sheikh Hasina's supporters to contest in elections, expected to be held in mid-February of next year. Marking the first anniversary of Sheikh Hasina's ouster, Yunus called on the people to seize the opportunity. The Nobel laureate wrote a letter to mark the day, calling it an unforgettable chapter in history. He vowed to bring in reforms, adding that the talks with stakeholders were underway. The Yunus administration claims it is dismantling the previous regime's processes. However, critics believe the actions stem from its political bias. Meanwhile, Sheikh Hasina's refuge in India seems to have become a sore point in diplomatic ties between New Delhi and Dhaka, as Bangladesh seeks her repatriation. And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight.